crafters, Lisa here from Fun Stuff Crafts. Just putting together a quick tutorial today on the differences between my sewing machine and my serger. Been getting quite a few comments when I'm talking about either using my sewing machine or my serger when I'm making masks or making my gaiters. So I thought it would be good if I do a little tutorial. There is my serger and there is my sewing machine. So we're just going to do a quick overview on what they are and what some of the differences are. Not going into a lot of depth in this video, just a quick overview. So let me know what you think. Click on the link below to subscribe. Click on the bell and YouTube will alert you each time I upload a new video. So first let's talk about the sewing machine. I happen to have a Brother BQ1350. Now I started out with a very basic sewing machine, and when I upgraded last year I did pick up this machine. So you guys do not need a machine as complex as this, but basic sewing machine. I have got lots of stitches available to me. I will tell you the stitches are great, but I probably use my straight stitch and my zigzag stitch the most. Okay, now for a sewing machine you have got a thread and you've got a bobbin. That's one distinct difference between a sewing machine and a serger, and I'll go over that with the serger in a moment. So I always like to have matching threads, and so you spin your bobbin for your sewing machine up here. I've already got my bobbin loaded down below here. Now with my sewing machine, I do have some really fun features that you don't necessarily need to have, but when I upgraded my machine, I have got a self-threader on my sewing machine, and I have got a self-cutter, which is a really nice feature. But I will tell you the basics that I use on my sewing machine are definitely my straight stitch and my zigzag stitch. So let's just start with that basic stitch. And so you guys will see that I am just on a basic stitch, and this is where you're bringing two pieces material together. Now one thing I always remind you guys when we're sewing, we always like to do a back stitch when we start out. But this is put together a stitch, it's just our straight stitch, okay? The other stitch I talk a lot about, you guys, is the basic zigzag stitch. Now this is one that I have told you that we can use on our knit fabric for our gaiters. And so this is another really common stitch, and I use this an awful lot. And so there is your basic zigzag stitch, okay? So straight stitch and zigzag stitch. As I said, I've got all kinds of stitches up here that is lots of fun to play with, but basics are a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. Now let's pop over to the serger and let's see what you do different on a serger versus what you do on a sewing machine. Okay, so this is my serger. I happen to have the Brother 1034D. I actually picked this up right at the start of COVID. It is a really inexpensive serger to start out with. And so one of the best features of a serger is the finished look on a seam. But let's just go through the serger really quick. I've got a 4-thread serger. As you guys can see, I've got 4 threads up here. You can sew with only 3 threads. Normally, I've always got 4 on because I'm really just trying to finish my seams. This is great for all types of material, and I want to show you the difference on a serger. Now, one of the key things on a serger is, one, it's got 2 needles going at all times. You can take a needle out, but again, I usually always use my 2 needles. It's also got a knife right here, and it might be kind of hard for you guys to see. It also has the threading going all the way down here. Okay, so I'm threading 4 threads. 2 are going down to what we call the loopers, and 2 are going to the needles. Okay, and then right in here, and it's kind of hard to see, there is a knife. Okay, so I'm going to show you how that knife works. So I'm going to put my fabric in a little ways, just so you guys can see it. This cute little tray is going to grab all of my fabric I'm going to cut off. So with a serger, got to get my right foot. with that knife, I can cut my seam. And so with the serger, you have got that finished look on your seam, okay? So if I compare that to what I did with the sewing machine doesn't have that same finish, okay? Now I could have zigzag stitched here and accomplished it on the sewing machine, kind of, but again, this has got the 2 seams going down the 2 needles, and it's got a nice finish. Now I sewed that going the wrong way, but you guys get the idea, okay? So one thing I really like about the serger is that finish. Now the other thing I've talked about, you guys, when we've been working with the gaiters is the stretchiness. Okay, so I want to go grab a piece of knit fabric and show you what I mean by that. Okay, so I got a piece of the knit fabric, and this is the fabric that I used on the ear loop gaiters, and it has got a really nice stretch to it. Now the one thing when you're working with a stretch fabric, as I've told you guys about before when we're working on our gaiters, is you can definitely use stretch fabric on a sewing machine. Zigzag stitch is usually the best one to use. You do not want to use a straight stitch though, because when you have a stretch fabric, a straight stitch, your stitches can break as you stretch things out. But when we go with our knit fabric in a serger, let's just run it through here really quick. You, 1, have a really nice finish to your fabric, and 2, as you stretch it, you're not having any pop in your thread, okay? So if we think about our gaiters, we have those on and people are stretching them, getting them in, putting them over the head, and this stitch is just so nice for your knit fabrics. I love both of my tools. I love my sewing machine and I love my serger. They both have a purpose. If you guys are just starting out, I would definitely start with a sewing machine. The serger is a nice to have, and I absolutely love it, especially with my knit fabrics. But the sewing machine, if you're starting out, this is the first thing that you definitely want to start with. So I hope this has kind of revealed a little bit of the mystery between a sewing machine and a serger. Please leave comments below if you'd like some more detailed video or some other ways to use a sewing machine or a serger. Please let me know. I'd love to go over it with you guys.